India and the United States is set to widen almost 4 months after the US imposed additional tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from a handful of countries, including India. The government has decided to go ahead with retaliatory tariffs against several American products. The new tariffs are likely to come into effect from the 21st of June. Rituparna Bhuyan joins us now with the exclusive details. So, Ritu, what are you picking up on India's plan with the retaliatory measures?
On May 18th, India had told the WTO that it is planning to increase import duties targeting US products. On 21st of June, India will be going ahead and imposing this country-specific duty. So why is India retaliating? That's because US had increased duties on iron and aluminium, and India maintains that this is not consistent to WTO rules and will cause loss to Indian exporters. How much loss will India incur? According to India's WTO filing, it is $31 billion for steel, and for aluminium, it is $134 million. And through this retaliatory tariff, India will seek to recover this loss. Let's take a quick look at the additional tariff that India proposes to impose on 21st of June. For example, motorcycles, good vehicles, golf carts, snowmobiles. On that, around 50% duty will be imposed. On chocolate products, cocoa, coffee, 10% duty will be imposed. Walnuts, almonds, several agriculture products are also in the list. Meanwhile, India and US trade diplomats will meet by the end of this month to discuss trade-related issues that both the countries have been having, and it is expected that both countries will also have parleys on the duties that was imposed by US on steel and aluminium, as well as India's retaliatory tariffs.
All right, Ritu, appreciate you joining us with those details. Now, even as India plans to go ahead with retaliatory tariffs against the United States, Commerce Minister Suresh Prabhu is hopeful of a resolution of the trade standoff through dialogue. Let's listen in.
Our meeting with USTR went off extremely well. We already decided to put all these issues behind and make a substantial progress into the trade and commerce. For that, the officers' meeting will take place very soon. Their people will come, we'll also go there, and we'll have a meeting to discuss about all the issues, pending issues.
Well, that is the Commerce Minister Suresh Prabhu saying that we will engage in dialogue with the US. We're now joined by former Commerce Secretary Rajiv. Kher. Mr. Kher, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. You know, the Commerce Minister there maintaining that unlike the G7, where the US President went after countries, allies like Canada, even the EU, when it comes to India, there is still the hope of bilateral dialogue, and hence they feel that things are better, not worse, between India and the US. What is your own assessment? Because this is not the first time that the US President has called out India specifically for high tariffs. In fact, half a dozen times he keeps bringing up the issue of Harley-Davidson. What would you be concerned about specifically, since the US has been acting unilaterally against its own allies, even forget China?
Well, Shireen, this seems to be a real concern for any country, and particularly the one which trades reasonably well with the United States. A unilateral increase in tariffs without following the due process described in the various WTO legislation is completely out of way. And therefore, what has been done in the case of aluminium and steel by United States, taking recourse to a domestic law but going against the international commitment of the WTO, is completely off the mark. So there is a reason for countries like India and others to take action which is justified under the existing international law. Now, as far as the retaliatory measures are concerned,
so you're saying that while India's actions... Yeah, you're saying India's actions are justified because the action imposed by the US is unilateral. But given the fact that there is a call, especially within the United States, that the GSP benefits, that's a generalized system of preference benefits, be removed from India, that India shouldn't enjoy those benefits any longer. What do you believe should be the negotiating stance of India, sir, given the fact that this review is underway?
See, GSP system is a unilateral system which finds a mention in the international law, and it's the country which is giving the GSP preference for the country which is giving the GSP preference to decide as to which countries and what products are eligible under the relevant program and policies of the country. So now, according to the American regulations, as I understand, India was losing its claim on GSP preferences. So clearly, India has very rightly asked for GSP preferences, and I think that's a matter of negotiation. So I would not. Let me make myself clear. I did not say that a retaliatory tariff, because aluminium and steel have been imposed tariffs beyond the bound duties, would be justified on India's part.
Okay. Okay. So if you're saying retaliatory tariffs would not be justified on India's part, and you also say that it is up to the US if it chooses to continue the GSP benefits to India or not, what could India put on the table to ensure that the GSP benefits continue? And how significant would the impact be? How significant would the hit be if the GSP benefits were to be done away with?
Well, we have a significant export which happens and which has been hitherto covered under the GSP. So clearly, if the GSP benefits are withdrawn, our textile sector and garment sector, shoes, etc., will suffer. But this is entirely a matter of negotiation. So if U.S. is prepared to grant us GSP in areas of our interest, then it is a matter of India, giving some of the demands that U.S. may put on India. Now, it all depends on what are those demands. For example, if U.S. asks India to give market access by cutting down on several concerns of SPS, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, which India has against U.S. in the context of agricultural products, or for that matter, diluting India's intellectual property law, property rights law.
Yeah.
But I think these are very serious matters, and India will have to decide whether it would like to compromise its position on those issues in return for the GSP benefits. I understand that the GSP benefits which come to India are roughly around $5 billion worth of them. And therefore, the choice has to be made whether a $5 billion trade is more important, or a permanent damage to a given law, or the position of agriculture sector is more important.
Okay. As you pointed out, maybe when it comes to the agriculture sector, when it comes to issues related to IPR, these would be issues which seem like they ought to be non-negotiable from the Indian side, because this could lead to permanent structural changes that may not be conducive for India in the long term. But where do you believe India could show some flexibility? For instance, a matter that has become hotly contentious, which is this price cap on medical stents, or the issue of Harley-Davidson. Can India show some flexibility on some of these issues that may not necessarily hurt its interests in the long term to ensure that the benefits, this $5 billion worth of benefits, continue?
See, first of all, India must clearly contextualize this discussion. And the United States position that India is not giving market access in some of the areas which U.S. is seeking is completely misplaced if you contextualize it in the context of what you do, what India does in areas such as civil aviation, defense, and so on and so forth. India is buying so much from U.S. in the area of civil aviation, aircrafts, and defense equipment. So if you contextualize that, then the trade deficit that United States is worried about is taken care of. Secondly, to answer your specific question on Harley-Davidson, and you also mentioned about sorry, I forget that.
The stents, the medical stents.
Yeah, medical devices. Absolutely. See, medical devices. I think we are. My personal view is I think we are doing perhaps a disservice to the medical device sector in an overall context, because. It is too soon in the day for us to start capping these prices, because medical device sector is just taking roots in this country. And unless we have galvanized enough manufacturing and we have developed some kind of a strength, start talking of price control may not allow investments to come in. And I think there we have to be a little cautious. Harley-Davidson, well, I don't think there is a big issue here. I mean, it might look very glamorous, but actually if you cut down tariffs on Harley-Davidson, the competition will remain in a very narrow sector.
Yeah.
And for Indian roads, Indian motorcycles are still doing pretty well. So I don't think it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
But so that's how it is.
Okay, contextualize the discussion, show flexibility on issues like the issue of Harley-Davidson, which won't really make that much of a difference to India. And you do believe that the price capping when it comes to medical devices has been poorly thought through and not necessarily in India's benefit today. But Rajiv Kher, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18, the former Commerce Secretary, on the trade skirmish and the escalation of friction between India and the US.